Thanks very much, Sylvester, for coming into studio.
Good to be here, Michelle. Thank you.
I mean, this is such an important book. You were, in describing how the book came about, you were telling us about the fact that so many people would tweet you, would message you, how do I go about doing this? How do I get my career started? So this is your answer to that.
This is my first attempt to the answer to that. Obviously, there's a lot of questions that are being asked, but I found commonalities and obviously grouped them, and then we're able to really just share those parts of the story.
Yeah.
I also do spend a lot of time at universities across the country speaking on a subject of Stand Against Bland, and also how do young people really break that boundary in terms of going into first employment. And there's a lot of questions there about how can I be authentic, how can I be effective without being rude or rough. And of course, a lot of millennials are also saying, we've been painted in a particular way. Because people say that we don't hardworking enough, we're a new generation that want things now, and how do they manage that? And I think that was really important for me to kind of put pen to paper and try to answer that and to try to help.
Yeah. Your accolades are vast and they are numerous, but it can't have come easy.
Never. It doesn't come easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, and emotionally and physically,
And sacrifices.
And sacrifices.
Yeah.
And I remember as a young person, when you are at university, you're the first one in your family to go into university. You have no comprehension of how much it's going to cost and the challenges you're going to face, not only just from paying your tuition, but also living and surviving and trying to manage everything.
And of course, the debt that you come with after you've gotten that degree.
It's actually quite challenging, and not only in terms of getting through your degree, but also you need to work as well on weekends. So you work at weekends, and I worked at night at call centers. So from your time in point of view is that you've got very limited time to still study and do what you need to do, but you also need to do all these other jobs.
Yeah.
And at one point I had 4 jobs at the same time, because I needed to be able to find a way of staying at university and be able to finish. And I know that many young people today are going through the same thing. Not only do they need to finish, but they also need to find ways to survive.
You talked about, millennials telling you that they're often accused of wanting things to come easy. And you've just described your own journey to us at university, where you held down 4 jobs. In your experience and talking to young people, do you find that perhaps that kind of sacrifice is sometimes lacking?
Yes. I do think it is lacking. I do think, obviously, social media and the fermentation of information nowadays has made it so easy for people to seem like they're doing really well very quickly. So someone has spotted me on Instagram, and now I'm making a lot of money, for an example. It's something that a lot of young people see, and they think that's how it is. And we know that it's not. Trying to ensure that you really kind of break through and build a sustainable career and a sustainable life, is very different. It's not that instant, and it's not that simple. And I think it's important, and the book does speak to that as well, that it's a lifelong commitment, and it's a lifelong journey, depending on where you come from and what kind of family you grew up in, and the society that you grew up in will determine pretty much, how you're going to at least, come forward. And for me, it was important to say, we've got to be more invested. At a young age, you have to be a lot more invested with why you want to do certain things, why you want to study particular modules, and why are you going that path, so that you are doing it really for you, not just to tick a box or to do what other people have done.
I want to ask you about the title, Stand Against Bland, but before we get there, perhaps, the advice that you give, is it perhaps targeted, is it something that you would say is targeted to all young people, or it's targeted to young people who do have access to basic opportunities? Because we know, as the most unequal society in the world, many young people don't have access to those opportunities that just get you in the door.
I think that question is potent, because it's really the biggest challenge that we are facing, right? Because a lot of our community, a lot of our young people don't have access. But I think the book also tries to say, I didn't have access myself.
But are you just one person? Are you the exception to the rule?
And I'm trying to say that I should not be the exception to the rule. I'm trying to say that perhaps many of us can actually be able to do that. And I remember, it is in the book, for an example, I had an opportunity to go to an audition, and I arrived in Rand Park region, coming from Soweto, and I studied in the township, and I'd never really been that exposed. And I get to this room, and everybody is like literally Model C English, coming all over me, and it's like, you know, white kids speaking, young people expressing themselves. And I was like, from the township, I never really had that opportunity. And I remember I struggled so much because I just thought, oh my God, I don't know how to speak like they do. I don't know how to express myself the way that they do, etc. So then I started really just, you know, taping myself on a TDK cassette and speaking myself, you know, onto the cassette, reading, so that I can just make an effort myself, so that I can feel like I can belong. Next time I go back, I can start pushing myself. So there's a lot of that element of, you know, we can all say that there's no access, but there's also those individuals, I guess like me back in the days, who actually, you know, didn't have the access, but when they're given the opportunity, you almost have to try to do all you can to stay focused.
I mean, you know, I feel like we shouldn't belittle just the struggles that ordinary South Africans have to go through sometimes to get their foot in the door. But what you're saying is try. Start off by trying. Do something at least.
It's critical, and that's really part of the Standing Against Bland. And so the bland could be just doing things as per usual, doing what your family have done.
Waiting for an opportunity.
And complaining about what's happening in your community. And I think Against Bland is more that, but I don't want this, you know, and I think many of us as young people and as a young black kid in the township, we always know that where we are, we don't want this. We don't want to be here. We want to be somewhere else. We want to be better. So I think part of that is it's an emancipation of how we think, because sometimes we think that is not me, or I can't really go to do that because I don't have access to it. So we already preclude ourselves, or exclude ourselves rather, from opportunities that are given, you know. And I think sometimes there's a lot of things. I mean, in the book, there are a lot of synopsis about how embarrassed I was. For an example, you know, embarrassed of, you know, my family, where I grew up, how I grew up, and it was something that could hold you back. And all I'm trying to say is that if you are that person, you're thinking, oh, that's not for me, I'm kind of saying it is for you.
It can be for you.
It can be for you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for coming into studio. Very timeous book, Stand Against Bland, and Sylvester Chauke can now add author to his list of accolades as well. Thank you, Sylvester.
Thank you so much.